turabashuje ndizera ko mumeze neza kandi muri kugira ibihe byiza aho muherereye. Iyi ni Seeforward nanone aho tuba tubaganiriza kuri serivisi na gahunda zitandukanye kugira ngo mugire amakuru mumenya. Iyi ni Seeforward nkuko mumenyereye, muri kumwe nanjye Tofa. Uyu munsi dufite umutumirwa muri studio za Seeforward waje kutugira ngo atuganirize kandi atumenyeshe ibyo bakora kandi biba bidufitiye akamaro. Reka tumwakire muri studio zacu rero. Welcome so much. We are really honored to have you here in the studio of Seeforward. You can start by introducing yourself, because many people maybe they have never seen you, telling them your names and also what you do, so that they know who we have in the studio today.
Okay. Well, thank you for the invite, and it's an honor to be here. My name is NANNETTE Dix. I am the program manager of the Trauma Resilient Communities Division of OSHN, which is the Office for Safe and Healthy Neighborhoods. And what we do is everything trauma related. So we work with our main focus is victims of gun violence, but we work with the cities throughout any marginalized community, working with the trauma that marginalized communities have. So that's what we do.
Yeah, urakoze cyane. Ati yitwa NANNETTE Dix, ava muri office ya Safe and Healthy Neighborhood. Murabizi nkunda kuyivuga cyane, nari nabo muterankunga biganiro dukora hano. Bakaba ari gahunda y'umujyi, ari office cyangwa sibiro bikunda gukora kuri gahunda zijyanye no kugabanya ibyaha cyane cyane bikoreshejwe imbunda mu makominote cyangwa se mu bice bitandukanye by'umujyi, aho abari gukorana na kominote zidafite cyangwa zifite ibibazo bitandukanye by'ubukene cyangwa n'ibindi birimo violence. Thank you so much. I think I've mentioned this office many times in our topics, in the things that we cover here. Many people need to understand, like, how did this start? Like, how the office has it been always there, or what's the story behind OSHN?
Well, OSHN was brought about because of incident. It was a violent incident that happened. I'm not for sure what year it was. It probably was like around 2000. Well, I don't want to give a year because I'll be messing that up. But it was an incident where two young men had killed each other through gun violence. They were, mutual enemies of each other, I guess, and they shot each other while the investigation was taking place, while the newscasters was out talking about the incident that happened with these two young men. Their prospective female friends got into it, and one of the female friends shot the other one while they were live on TV, where you couldn't see the actual shooting, but you can hear the gun violence taking place while they were out there talking about the violence that happened in between those two young men. The two young women got into an altercation, and one ended up dying. So we knew then that something needed to be happening on a more systemic level, and how do we really bring people together? So that's how the Office for Safe and Healthy Communities, Neighborhoods, has been brought about because of that incident. And because that incident really traumatized the whole community. You're thinking about, you standing there are police around, there's, the news around, you think you're in a safe environment, and then you hear pop, 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 pop. Yeah. So you knew that something was, it was just too much. So something had to happen, and that's why how OSHN came about.
Okay, ati nari mubajije uburyo iyi office cyangwa se ibiro byatangiye gukora. Ese byatangiye gute? Ati ibi biro byatangiye gukora cyangwa byashyizweho kubera hari hamaze kugaragara ibibazo bitandukanye byinshi cyane biri mu guhungabanya umutekano, ibyaha bikoreshejwe imbunda, aho hari case cyangwa se ikintu cyabaye aho polisi n'abanyamakuru bari bagiye gukavaringa inkuru cyangwa bari bagiye kureba inkuru y'abantu bari barasanye abana batoya cyangwa abasore batoya barasanye. Hanyuma mu gihe hari polisi, ambulance ndetse n'ibindi bigo bitandukanye, wumva ko aho hantu hari umutekano, ariko nanone live kuri televiziyo harongera haba iyindi shooting cyangwa kundi kurasana kw'abakobwa babiri barasanye. Kuva icyo gihe bahise bavuga ati ibi birakabije kuba abantu batinyuka no kuba barasana mu gihe hari polisi ihari nayo. Ibi bimaze gufata indi ntera, bafata umwanzuro wo gutangiza iki kigo gishinzwe kugira gikumira ibyaha bikoreshejwe imbunda n'ibindi byaha by'urugomo. Thank you so much for this office. I think it has done a lot of things since then. When you started implementing like those measures to reduce crime, do you see any improvement? Because I look up on for instance, when this year was starting, Mayor Greenberg hosted an event where they were talking about the issue or the overview of the city. They said that shooting has decreased by 40%, where even other issues or other crimes related with gun violence has decreased. So since you started, do you see any improvement? Or how can you say the statistics, how are they right now?
Well, really, honestly, you have to be honest. There's ebb and flow. So we see things drop and then you see things pick up. You see things pick up, like now it's getting warmer. So you'll see, shootings pick up, different things like that. But I think over and all, it has been a steady drop. Now, it may not seem that way when we see stuff on TV and we see like a couple weeks ago that we had a weekend of maybe 8 youth were, murdered. And so you see that in that heap and it's like, has shootings decreased, but overall they're decreasing. But it doesn't mean that just one life lost is not a hardship to a community, because one life lost is a hardship to a community. So for us, being mothers, fathers, sisters, and brothers, and on and on and on, we don't feel it. But if we're looking at it quantitatively, quantitatively, the numbers, yes, we could see the drop, but qualitatively, for us, our feelings, we were like, but it is dropping.
Okay, nari mubajije ese kuva batangiye ofisi batangiye gukora haba barabonye uburyo ibibazo cyangwa se ibyaha byari bikoreshejwe imbunda byaragabanyutse, ese byatangiye kugabanyuka? Ati yego, hagaragaye umusaruro munini cyane kuba muri serivisi bakoraga kw'ibyaha byagiye bigabanyuka, ariko n'ubundi usanga bizamuka bitewe n'ibihe runaka turimo. Hari ibihe nk'ibihe by'ubushyuhe cyane, tuba tugiye nko muri sama, abantu bari hanze, hari igihe bituma ibyaha biza bijyanye no kurasana, ariko mu buryo rusange ibyaha byagiye bigabanyuka. Thank you. So let's talk about like services or things you do to help the community, maybe dealing with the trauma, or let's start with let's say gun violence. Like in the services you provide, every office, like you have so many outreach programs you do. What kind of services people can benefit in, or if they have issues that can lead them be victims, or maybe be involved in gun violence or shootings or any other crimes? Like what services do OSHN provide to help people? So
if you are a victim of gun violence, vicariously or directly, because we do have, families that have lost loved ones to gun violence, but then we do services with them because they have lost a loved one to gun violence. So at the start, if we have youth that may have been, perpetrators of gun violence, or they may have been, on a radar and we know that they are, group active. So what we try to do is systemically, we try to work with those youth so gun violence won't occur, so they wouldn't become a victim or a perpetrator of. So that's what our outreach does, and they do it well. They are really connected to the communities, especially the hardest hit communities. And then we have our data collection division that's run by, Ivan. He is really Dr. Bennett. I'm going to say his name wrong, so I'm just say Ivan. Okay. So I know that he is really tuned to what we call the red dots, where the hot zones are. So we make sure that we target services to those places. So we have the outreach team. Then we have the MDT teams, it's the multidisciplinary team. They work with the families. They work with the victims unit, LMPD victims unit. They work with other entities to help those families in a holistic way. Then you have the youth services that we have. Our Yes team. They work with an engagement. They work with community engagement and they work with youth engagement. So because it's not a one size fits all, we want to prevent violence, but when violence occurs, then we have to, make sure that people are healing from that. So our division, the division of TRC, what we are doing, we have really looked at, okay, where are the hot spots? Also, how can we change the way we work with folks? Because we know that Black and brown folks do not, I'm not saying that they do not like therapy, but they're not quick to sit down and tell you their problems.
Yeah.
So what's other ways that we can do that is therapeutic in nature to get to folks, especially the youth? So we did a lot of programs like Mind, Body, and Soul, which is more art therapy, and reaching them that way and having them work through their problems that way. We do a lot of stuff with you guys, like Seeforward and stuff like that, and working with communities where we are in the community. Because I'm not going to say that, because if I speak Spanish, which I do not, but if I spoke Spanish and they said, okay, Nannette, we want you to be the person that speaks for, all Spanish speaking people, that wouldn't be right. Because even though I speak Spanish, I'm not from that culture.
Yeah.
So I could not really understand what they're going through. I only can tell you what I'm going through as a African-American female living here. I can tell you my story, but I can't tell you anybody else's story. So we go to Kevin, we go to Farhan, we go to the other folks that are in the communities to let them tell their own stories and tell us how we can help them with their folks. Like if you all are dealing with any gun violence, like we just had a correction officer just get killed.
Yeah.
And so we work with those folks. And what we're doing also is we're going to start doing some trainings. We're going to do a train the trainer on grief. So we can train you and get you certified in how to work with your community, with your congregation or whatever, on how to deal with people who have lost a loved one to gun violence.
Yeah.
And those things like that. So we're doing a lot of more training and sustainability pieces, because I think what we need to do is train the communities to give back to their community.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing with TRC.
Okay, good. Bati bakora ibintu byinshi bitandukanye, cyane cyane harimo muri rusange kurwanya, icyo nicyo cya mbere, kurwanya ibyaha cyangwa prevention yo kurwanya ibyaha bikoreshejwe imbunda, aho bakorana n'urubyiruko no kwigisha abantu batandukanye uburyo ibyo byaha babyirinda. Ariko nanone mu gihe n'ibyo byabaye, mu gihe habaye shootings cyangwa se habaye kurasana, ndabizi muri community hari abagiye babura abantu bitewe n'imbunda, mu gihe byabaye bagafasha abantu mu buryo bwo kubigisha kugira ngo bakire ibikomere byatewe no kubura abantu bitewe no kurasa cyangwa no bazize imbunda, hanyuma bakabigisha bakabafasha kugira ngo babicemo, bace muri ako gahinda no muri ibyo bikomere, no kwigisha n'abandi kugira ngo abantu benshi babe informed cyangwa bagire ubumenyi, noneho babashe kurwanya ibi byaha. Niyo muri gahunda rero bafite zo kwigisha abantu no gushyira abantu hamwe muri izo serivisi zo kugira ngo tubagane hanyuma badufashe. Yeah, that's amazing things you guys are doing. So we have members, of course, as many communities here. We had some shootings, I would say, some people who have lost their lives related to gun violence. We have like young men, people like high schoolers, kids who were in the high school. We lost so far, I think, 2, I would say. And we had those conflicts and we see that mainly, let me talk about like my community. Mainly it is in the youth. Like they are the ones being involved in maybe I don't know how they get into that, but we see them a lot having issues dealing with gun violence. In those programs you have, do you have like outreach where they can come to you, or do you just train people who can train others or something like that?
It's both. So we look at it through all four corners. So we do have outreach where they will come, and if you all say that, hey, this family lost a loved one to gun violence, and they have, brothers and sisters. And that's what we think. We do not look at the hidden victims, which, we always go to the mom and dad. If you lost a loved one, like, so if those two young people you talked about, you'll wrap around their mother and their father and like, oh, we're so sorry. But you don't think about that little brother and little sister that's standing in the corner, that's looking, that's grieving, because we're too busy focusing on mom and dad. But that little boy or girl in the corner is the one that needs the help. So we do have outreach, so you can go and talk to the outreach folks and say, hey, this is what's going on in this household. We can look at it from that end and make sure that those two young people that's left behind, they do not themselves turn, because hurt people. So you hurt me, I'm hurting you. You took somebody away from me that I loved, and now I'm festering, I'm angry. A lot of this is festering and anger, that internalized hatred toward yourself, because then you don't like anything that looks like you. So it's guns is readily available everywhere. So it's easy to pick up something. And you have to think about a lot of the youth that we're dealing with. And I don't know, how long that, like if like in immigrant populations, how long you've been here, what struggles that your parents had to come through to be here. And all that stuff, that vicarious trauma is related to these kids, because these kids could feel the emotions in the room. So you have a lot of stuff that these kids are dealing with. And if you're thinking about you dealing with, especially stuff that's going on in the Middle East, different things like that, especially stuff that's coming, here now in our own governmental systems, you have to look at how is that impacting how we think, how we feel and react. So if you look at the brain, and you look at the brain like in this shape like that, this part of the brain is what we call, that brain where there's sensors, is that primitive brain where you think that fight, flight, or freeze. So you always
fight or flight.
Yeah. So you always I'm gonna get you before you get me. And so, and it could be real to them, which you may not think, why would you do that? But you have to think about this trauma brain. So then you have the middle part of the brain, which is a filtering system that tells you, your front part of your brain, which tells you, hey, you shouldn't do that. You should think a better way. You don't get that. And if you think about the development of the brain is with, 20 to 25 to 26, and some of it's stunted because you can have drug abuse within that, because you had known to stuff, so you drug abuse. It can have all that trauma and tension. That traumatized brain does not function the way a quote unquote normal brain functions. So it's easy for a kid that gets hostile and that primitive brain is cutting on and they're not thinking straight anyway to pick up. And then that's when you see the kid later on in court. They maybe be defiant. Or they may just break down and say, I didn't mean to do that, because consequences comes later. In the motion, I'm thinking about survival. And we have to understand that we have a lot of kids that are on survival mode. And it's unfortunate. But we as parents and we as leaders and stuff, we need to start looking at, that's why we like to train. How do I look and how do I see those signs? So we need to do a better job at that.
Harakoze cyane, arimo akomeza dusobanurira ikintu kinini cyane gitera ibi byago cyangwa ibi byaha. Kuvuga ngo iyo umuryango wabuze umuntu cyangwa se wabuze nk'izo ngero natanga, babuze nk'abana babo, abenshi usanga bareba gusa umuryango, ababyeyi babo babuze umwana wabo bitewe n'imbunda, ariko muri rusange usanga abo bana baragiye bafekta cyangwa se abavandimwe babo, inshuti, abantu bari baziranye, ugasanga violence cyangwa se ibyaha by'urugomo bikomeza mu gihe umwana umwe cyangwa se umuntu ubuziriye uwe mu bintu by'urugomo nawe agira nko gushaka gukora revenge cyangwa kwihorera, hanyuma ugasanga bikomeza biba cycle cyangwa se uruhererekane bidahinduka. Ariyo mpamvu bafasha kugira bafate wenda nk'abana, ababyeyi, inshuti, babashyire hamwe babaganirize kugira ngo bahagarike iyo cycle cyangwa se urwo ruhererekane rwo kugira kugira ngo bakore urwo rugomo, kuko usanga ibitera ibibazo byinshi nk'ibi ngibi biba bitandukanye. Hari abantu baba bafite ibibazo bya trauma mu miryango cyangwa se ibyago by'ibibazo bitandukanye. Hari ibyago by'intambara ahantu baba baraturutse, nk'urugero atanga rwo muri Middle East cyangwa se abaturuka mu burasirazuba hariya muri Aziya, haba hari ibibazo bitandukanye by'intambara, baba bari na hano ugasanga nk'izo mvururu ziribagiraho uruhare ahanini. Rumva n'abantu baturuka mu bice byose birimo intambara, aba muri za Kongo no mu bindi, usanga bari hano bakomeza kuba affected cyangwa bafite ibyo bibazo bitandukanye, bikaba byabatera no gukomeza kugira ibindi bintu by'urugomo babarizwamo. Would you talk about like drug issues as well? Because I think also it's one of the things which lead to having violence and related to any conflict, which can lead to shootings. Like, what measures are you taking like to reduce drugs or drug related issues?
Okay. Well, OSHN does not focus on like the drug issues point blank, but what we do is we do it on the backside. Is that when they folks go to therapy, then they'll talk about any, substance misuse issues that you may have. And a lot of times, coming from the background, that's one of my specializations is substance misuse. And as a counselor and stuff, and you've seen a lot of times when you're dealing with trauma and you're dealing with a lot of things, you do pick up, what we call, maladaptive behaviors such as substance misuse disorders and stuff like that, because it is easy to get high, because when you get high for a little while, it takes away all of that pain. But I always tell people, when you pick up that drug, it's only masking. It's not taking away anything.
Yeah.
Only what it does is
you will wake up and come back to that issue.
and it's scary, because if you think about, say, if you're a little girl and you had a traumatic event, so you're growing into this woman that never dealt with this traumatic event, but you're hiding and you masking and you keeping that traumatic event away because you're getting high. But every time your high comes down, that little 6-year-old girl's still looking at you, and she's still traumatized. That's the hardest thing, to go back to have a conversation with that little girl, because that little girl dictates everything that you do as an adult. So when you ever see somebody that you were thinking, okay, why do they act like they're still in the adolescent stage?
Yeah.
Because, cognitive ability stops. And sometimes it's your brain's way of protecting you, because you can't move forward. But drug issues and stuff like that, we will, take them, send them to Peace Hospital. We have a great relationship over there to make sure that they're getting the services that they need. Jonathan, he is well in tune with substance misuse disorders. So when we talk to people, we do talk about it, but it's nothing that, OSHN is focused on gun violence, but, substance misuse issues is one of the, social determinants of health, different things like that comes along with the gun violence. But we do it a backdoor way, where we may not be the big addressee in the room, but we do address it.
nari mubajije ku bijyanye n'ikoreshwa ry'ibiyobyabwenge, ko nabyo biri mu ruhare runini rutera ibyaha by'urugomo. Ati mu bintu dukora hariya ntago direct cyangwa se mu buryo buri direct dukora ku bijyanye no kugabanya ibiyobyabwenge cyangwa se kuri serivisi z'ibiyobyabwenge, ariko hari serivisi dutanga zo kuganira, za therapy, cyangwa se hamwe abantu bicara bakaganira bakavuga ku bibazo bafite, ari naho bafasha ku addressinga cyangwa se kurwanya ibyaha by'ikoreshwa ry'ibiyobyabwenge. Muri ibyo baba baganira, urabona nk'abantu benshi bakoresha ibiyobyabwenge, ari nabyo akunda kubwira abantu ko ari byiza kujya kugana inzira yo kugira ngo ukire kubikoresha, kuko inshuro nyinshi yo ubikoresheje biba biri kugufasha gusa mu kanya gatoya ko kugira wibagirwe ibibazo ufite, ako n'ubundi ugarutse usanga bya bibazo ubifite. Ari nayo mpamvu ati ibyiza nuko wagana izo serivisi ukashaka uburyo inzira yo kubireka no kurwanya ibiyobyabwenge. I think we kind of able to wrap up what we were talking about, but let me ask you this, like how this community can be able to be involved in services that you do, because maybe some people out there we like personally, I've seen some moms telling me, "Hey, my kids are behaving weird. I don't know where to go." Like they move around in the solution. They be like, maybe if I live in this area, maybe it might be the issue. Let me move to another place. Like they don't know how they can be involved, and they report if they are seeing changes in the behaviors of their children, of their youth, of their husband, of their wives, something like that, like the family level, how they can be involved in OSHN.
What we can do first and foremost is, have real talk sessions. If you all want to invite us in, we can talk to the families, and then just go, and then I can really get abreast of what is really going on. I will tell you, moving doesn't make it better because you just take the problem with you. You know what I mean? It's similar to like, if you close down public housing.
Yeah.
And then you wonder why you close down public housing and you scatter people out, why the violence is scattering out. You didn't never fix the problem. The issue wasn't in the movement of the people. The people were having the issues because of just different things that was happening. So if something's happening in the family, then we can address that. It's hard, especially if you come in from another country and you have certain rules and regulations. Now these kids are butting against you because they're in America now.
Yeah.
And America has certain rules and regulations, and they're trying to fit in. A child just wants to fit in.
Yeah.
And mom and dad, your stuff is antiquated. It's old. We're not looking at that. That worked back where we came from, but it doesn't work here. And you're not living in the here at this age and at this teenage age. So you see that friction with the families. So what we say is you need to find your dance with your child. It's like, kind of letting loose a little bit of your guard, but allowing them to express themselves where they are now, because it is so hard for kids. And that's why you see the suicide rate in African American males go up because of all of this stuff. So what I would say is we can have real talk sessions. Kevin can invite me. And then we can talk to the groups of people. What are some of the things that you're dealing with? And how can we help you? How can we walk alongside of you to really address some of those issues? Is it an issue that, your child may need therapy? Or is it just an adolescent issue that is just normal?
Yeah.
So we can do that.
Okay, rero mubajije ese ni gute nka community y'abantu baba bahura n'ibyo bibazo cyaba shaka kubimenya n'igihe ubonye nko mu muryango wawe hari umuntu utangiye kugira imico utari kumenya iyo ariyo, ari mu bana, ari mu bantu bakuru, hari nk'abagiye bahura n'ibyo bintu, ni gute waba involved cyane, ni gute wakorana n'iki kigo kugira ngo umenye uburyo wafasha abantu b'umuryango wawe? Ati nta kibazo, muri serivisi dufite harimo kuza gusura imiryango. Umuntu ushaka ko tumuganiriza bajya bishyira hamwe nka groupe bakadutumira, haba hano kuri Seeforward bazaba bafite nk'izo programme, bashobora no kumenyesha aho ziri, hanyuma bakadutumira tukaza tukaganira nabo, tukabereka uburyo wenda bitwara mu gihe niba umwana wawe afite ibibazo runaka cyangwa se akeneye ko muganira akaba yabasha kubona uwo aganiriza. Kubera ko usanga nk'urugero bamwe bafata umwanzuro akavuga ati reka nimuke muri aka gace nge muri aka ngaka, cyangwa gahunda zitandukanye zikavuga reka tukureho izi public housing cyangwa ahantu abantu batuye bacucitse tubajyane mu bindi bice niba bari bafite ibintu bya violence cyangwa se ibyaha bitandukanye by'urugomo. Usanga byaha n'ubundi babijyana n'ahandi batuye, cyangwa rwa rugomo barujyana n'ahandi batuye. Rero bikaba byiza yuko dufatikanya twese kugira ngo bakire cyangwa se bahinduke, aho kugira ngo uvuge ngo uri kwimuka gusa. Rero muri gahunda zihari harimo zo kuganira n'abantu, harimo zo kuganiriza izo groupe, twajya dukorera hamwe twese kugira ngo tugabanye ibyo byaha. Yeah, thank you so much. I think people are able to understand what you do. So now I think what we can do is to tell them where we are, like the offices, where they are, if they need maybe to stop by the office. If you have locations somewhere, would you tell them where they can find you?
Okay, we're at the L&M building on the 5th floor, 908 East Broadway. So, but I will prefer call so we can set up appointments.
Yeah.
502-574-6415.
Okay. So I think we'll pin down those information, the
yes,
address,
please. I
the
don't
email.
call my number, and I'm like, what is my number? So, yes.
Yeah, I think that will be able to help them. So, muri gahunda zihari bafite ofisi, turaza kubashyiraho ofisi zabo, aho mwabahamagara, nimero mwahamagara, email, adresse, ku buryo umuntu afite ikibazo cyangwa se akeneye kuba yahagera. Ikindi bibutsa ushobora no kuzana hano kuri Seeforward tukagufasha kugira ngo tubahuze mu gihe ufite ibibazo bitandukanye byerekeranye n'ibyo ngibyo. I will say thank you so much, Nannette.
Thank you.
Is meaningful
Thank you so
and
much.
it can help a lot of people.
Thank you all.